The letter arrives on a Thursday. You've been expecting it, in the way you expect things you decided about months ago, not with surprise, but with a kind of finality that settles into your chest and stays there. You set it on the kitchen table and look at it for a minute before you open it. Your mother is in the next room. You don't tell her yet. You enlisted because of a combination of things that you'll spend years trying to explain to people who didn't. There was the money, which was real and mattered. There was the structure, which you wanted even if you couldn't have named it at the time. There was something harder to articulate, a feeling that you needed to be tested in a way that civilian life wasn't going to test you, that you needed to find out what you were made of in conditions that couldn't be faked or negotiated. You were 18. You didn't have the language for it yet. You just knew you needed to go. Basic combat training is 8 weeks at a post that exists for the sole purpose of taking civilians apart and putting soldiers back together. The drill sergeants meet you at the bus. They are already screaming before the doors open. You have been warned about this. The warning does not prepare you. Nothing prepares you for the first 72 hours, which are designed to disorient, to strip away everything familiar, to make you forget who you were before you got here, so that what's built in its place has no competition. You run more than you have ever run in your life. You run in boots, which is different from running in sneakers, in a way that takes your calves 3 days to understand. You do push-ups and sit-ups and flutter kicks until your arms give out, and you do them on your arms anyway. You learn to make your bed to a standard so precise that a quarter drop from a foot above the blanket should bounce. You learn to eat an entire meal in 4 minutes. You learn to sleep anywhere and wake up instantly and function on less sleep than you believed was possible without permanent damage. The sleep deprivation is its own curriculum. They teach you things when you're exhausted on purpose, because that's when it matters. Decision-making when you're running on nothing. Following instructions when your brain wants to shut down. Keeping your weapon clean and your head clear when everything in your body is asking you to stop. You learn what you actually are under those conditions. Some of what you find is better than you expected. Some of it is harder to look at. You learn land navigation. You learn how to read a map and a compass in the dark in the woods, carrying 40 pounds of gear, moving toward a coordinate that doesn't care how tired you are or whether you find it. You learn to maintain your rifle, the M4, which becomes the most familiar object in your life, which you field strip and reassemble until you can do it blindfolded, which you treat with a care that exceeds the care you give almost anything else you own. You learn that a weapon that fails at the wrong moment is the last mistake you'll ever make. You don't let it fail. The other recruits become something in those 8 weeks. Not friends exactly, not at first. There isn't time for the slow accumulation of friendship. Something faster and more necessary than that. People you trust because you have no choice, and then, because you have no choice, actually trust. You find out who they are under pressure, and they find out who you are, and there are no secrets left by the end. That's the point. You can't carry a secret in the field. It's dead weight. You graduate basic and go to advanced individual training, where you learn the specific skills of your military occupational specialty, your job, the thing the Army decided it needed from you when it looked at your scores and your aptitudes and your answers to 100 questions on a day you took a test in a strip mall recruiting office that smelled like carpet cleaner and ambition. You learn that job the way you learn to breathe, not as information you acquired, but as reflex you built, repetition by repetition, until the procedure lives in your hands instead of your head. Then you get to your unit, and everything you learned in training reveals itself as preparation for learning the actual thing. A unit is a world. It has its own culture, its own hierarchy, its own language, the shorthand of people who have been in the same rooms through the same long hours and have stopped explaining things to each other because explanation takes time nobody has. You are the new soldier. You are aware of this every moment of every day for months. You watch more than you speak. You do what you're told before you're told to wonder why. You learn the names and the ranks and the histories and the unspoken rules that govern everything and are never written down anywhere. You earn your place the same way everyone else earned theirs, by showing up, by doing the work. By not complaining where people can hear you, by being someone your squad can count on when it matters.
The days are long. Early mornings that make civilian early morning seem theoretical. Formations before sunrise, physical training in the dark. The day's work beginning before most people have had coffee. You learn to function in that rhythm, and then it becomes your rhythm, and after a while you can't sleep past 5 without your body objecting. You carry that with you for years after you get out. Some things the Army installs in you it doesn't bother to uninstall. You deploy. The word sounds clean and administrative when you say it out loud. The reality is weeks of preparation, of pre-deployment training that covers everything that could go wrong and then assumes worse, of turning in civilian clothes and civilian thoughts and civilian assumptions about how safe the world is. You call your family. The conversations are careful. Everyone says the things they hope are true. Nobody says the things they're actually afraid of. The country you land in is not what you expected, and you expected to not know what to expect, which still doesn't prepare you. The heat is different from any heat you've experienced, not the heat of a summer afternoon, but a physical presence, a weight, something the air does to you rather than just a temperature it reads. The dust gets into everything, your gear, your food, your lungs. The landscape is nothing like home, and it is also, after enough weeks, just where you are. Because the human brain is adaptable, and adaptation is survival, and survival is your job. Your job is also 100 other things simultaneously. You pull security, you run patrols, you conduct convoys down roads that look ordinary and are not. You build relationships with local populations, which requires patience and cultural understanding and the ability to communicate across barriers of language and history and mutual suspicion in ways they did not fully cover in training. You do all of this while maintaining situational awareness at a level that is not sustainable long-term, and which you sustain anyway because the alternative is unacceptable. The waiting is the hardest part to explain to people who haven't done it. The long stretches of nothing that are not actually nothing, that are vigilance compressed into boredom, attention paid to the absence of threat, the exhausting work of staying ready for something that may or may not come. You stand post for hours watching a perimeter, and your feet hurt and your back aches, and none of that matters because the moment you let your attention wander could be the moment you needed it most. You keep your attention, hour after hour. That discipline is not natural. It is constructed deliberately over years, and it costs something to maintain. You see things on deployment. Some of them are remarkable in ways that don't make it into letters home. Landscapes that take your breath at dawn. Moments of unexpected connection with people separated from you by everything except the fact of being human. The dark comedy that soldiers cultivate as a survival mechanism, the jokes that would appall civilians and that keep you functional, the specific satisfaction of a mission that goes exactly as planned. When all the preparation and coordination and discipline pays off in a clean outcome that nobody outside the wire will ever know about. And some of what you see is harder. You carry that too. The Army gives you a language for it. After-action reviews, debriefs, the clinical vocabulary of incident reports. The language is useful. It is not the same as processing. Processing takes longer. Processing takes years sometimes. You find out which things stay with you and which things you can set down, and you don't always get to choose which is which. When you rotate back, the airport is louder than you remember airports being. The civilian world moves at a pace that feels reckless. People who don't scan for exits when they walk into rooms, who don't calculate distance and cover automatically, who feel safe because they've never had reason not to. You understand this. You were that person once. You're not sure you can get back to it entirely, and after a while you stop trying. And instead you figure out who you are now with the things you've learned installed in you permanently. The camaraderie follows you home in a form that civilian relationships struggle to match. Not because civilians aren't good people, they are, but because there is a specific bond formed between people who have been exhausted and frightened and bored and proud and ashamed and alive together. People who have trusted each other with the irreplaceable thing. You stay in touch. The ones who go silent worry you. You check on them. Sometimes they answer. You will re-enlist or you won't. You'll make that decision based on things you can't fully articulate to anyone who asks. The pull of the mission versus the pull of the life you've deferred. The weight of belonging to something larger than yourself versus the weight of everything you've traded for that belonging. Some soldiers leave after one contract and spend years missing the clarity. Some soldiers stay 20 years and retire into a world that feels too loose, too unpredictable, too unstructured to live in comfortably. Both are real. Both are the same story told from different distances. What you know at the end of whatever time you serve is this: you are asked to do something genuinely hard. You did it. Not perfectly, there is no perfectly in war or anywhere else, but you showed up. You carried your weight and sometimes someone else's weight, and you kept moving forward when moving forward was the only direction available. You found out what you were made of. It was not what you expected. It was more, and it was harder, and it changed you in ways that will take a lifetime to fully understand. You wouldn't trade it, but you also know exactly what it cost. Both of those things are true at the same time. That's the part nobody puts on the poster.